It was the wedding no one saw coming. A 78-year-old millionaire marrying his 35-year-old nurse after just 6 weeks of knowing each other. He called it love. His children called it madness. And 3 months later, she was gone without a trace, along with the only copy of his newly signed will. Harold Whitmore had lived what many would call a successful life. A self-made man who rose from selling typewriters door to door to owning a chain of tech repair shops across California. By the time he turned 65, he'd retired comfortably to a sprawling estate in Carmel Valley. Widowed, wealthy, and worn out from decades of hustle, Harold spent his days gardening, feeding the blue jays, and watching old westerns. But that quiet retirement would erupt into one of the most bizarre true crime stories local police had ever seen. One that involved betrayal, greed, and a twist even Harold never saw coming. The trouble began when Harold slipped on wet tiles by his koi pond. A fractured hip and weeks of rehab followed. That's when she entered his life. Angela Moreau, 35, pretty, kind, with a soothing voice and a smile that could soften stone. She wasn't just a nurse. She was attentive, thoughtful. She brought Harold books, made him homemade soup, even played chess with him in the evenings. He found himself laughing again, something he hadn't done since his wife died 5 years earlier. By week 4, Harold had dismissed his full-time home care service and requested Angela exclusively. Harold's children, Liam and Beth, were alarmed. Liam, an architect in Seattle, called his father immediately. "You just met this woman. Don't you think this is a little fast?" But Harold brushed him off. "She's not after my money, Liam. She makes me feel alive." 6 weeks after meeting her, Harold and Angela married in a private ceremony in his backyard under the oak tree his wife once adored. Angela wore white. Harold wore a tailored blue suit and a grin wider than the Pacific. Only one person stood beside them, Angela's sister Liza, as witness. None of Harold's family was invited. 3 months after the wedding, Angela disappeared. Harold told police she went to run errands one afternoon and never returned. Her car was later found abandoned outside a gas station off Highway 1. Purse still inside. Phone missing. Surveillance footage showed her entering the station but never leaving. At first, police suspected abduction, but no ransom came, no sightings, nothing. Harold was distraught, at least publicly. But behind closed doors, his children were asking different questions. Beth, the more cautious of the two siblings, flew in from Chicago the day after Angela's disappearance. Her first stop wasn't the police station, it was her father's study. What she found there changed everything. Harold had drafted a new will 6 weeks after marrying Angela, one that revoked the 2003 version that left the estate equally to Beth and Liam. Instead, 80% of the estate would now go to Angela, with the remainder split between a pet charity and Angela's sister Liza. But that wasn't all. The only signed copy, gone. The lawyer said Harold insisted on keeping the original himself. Now it was nowhere to be found. Theories spun fast. Had Angela faked her own disappearance? Had she been harmed, or had someone in the family had enough? Liza was uncooperative when police questioned her. She probably just ran off. She shrugged. She gets like that. But detectives weren't convinced. A missing woman, a missing will, and a sudden inheritance shift. It was a cocktail of red flags. 2 weeks after the investigation stalled, a break came. A traffic camera caught footage of Angela's car 2 days after she'd supposedly vanished. But the driver wasn't her. It was a man. Sunglasses, ball cap, slouched posture. When the footage was enhanced, Beth recognized the jacket. It belonged to her brother. Liam was brought in for questioning. At first, he denied everything, but when shown the footage, he crumbled. "Yes, I drove her car, but I didn't kill her." His story was this. He confronted Angela the night before she disappeared. They argued. He accused her of manipulating their father. Angela, according to Liam, laughed in his face. She said we were entitled brats living off Daddy's legacy. Liam left in a rage. The next morning, she was gone. He panicked. He admitted moving her car to create confusion. "I didn't want people to think Dad did something." With Liam ruled out for foul play, attention turned back to the one person no one had questioned deeply enough. Harold. He was old, frail, but hiding something. When police searched his estate again, they discovered a USB drive hidden behind a loose bookshelf panel. On it, emails between Angela and a man named Sam Rivera. Romantic, explicit, and damning. Angela had been planning to flee the country with Sam. One email read, "Once I get the signed copy, we're out. He trusts me. He even calls me his angel." 3 months later, hikers discovered human remains in the Salinas River. Dental records confirmed it was Angela. She had been struck in the head and drowned. Harold was re-questioned. This time he didn't pretend. "She lied to me," he said. "She told me she loved me, that we had forever." Police arrested him that afternoon. Harold's trial was swift. Prosecutors painted him as a betrayed lover turned killer. The betrayal triggered something, a man who lost his wife, his trust, and almost his legacy. The defense argued diminished capacity. A stroke 2 years prior, cognitive decline, emotional manipulation. The jury found him guilty of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 20 years. At 79, it was a life sentence. Beth visits her father once a month. She says some days he remembers Angela and weeps. Other days he insists she's still alive. "I don't know what's worse," she told reporters, "watching my father grow old and alone, or watching him convince himself he's still loved by the woman who destroyed us." The estate has since been donated to a trust for elder abuse awareness. Liam no longer speaks publicly about the case. But every year on the anniversary of Angela's disappearance, someone leaves a single white rose on her abandoned car's dashboard. No one knows who, but those who knew her say it's probably not love. It's guilt. 6 months after the sentencing, Harold wrote a letter from his prison cell. It was never mailed. Authorities found it tucked inside his Bible during a routine inspection. The letter was addressed to no one, but the words were meant for Angela. "You made me feel like a man again. You brought laughter into a house that hadn't heard joy in a decade. And I still don't know when the act began and where the truth ended. Did you ever love me even for a moment? Or was I always just a plan? I killed you. That is a truth I carry like a stone in my chest. But you killed me first, slowly, quietly, with every lie you whispered as you held my hand." When the guards read it, one of them asked Harold if he wanted it mailed. He just shook his head. "No, let it die here." For months, Liza Moreau refused interviews. She declined subpoenas, dodged reporters, and even moved out of state. But nearly a year after Angela's death, she broke her silence in a podcast interview titled Inheritance Games. She was smart. Too smart. But Angela always chased shortcuts. When she told me she was marrying that old man, I begged her not to. The host asked if she knew about the plan with Sam Rivera. Liza hesitated, then nodded. She thought she'd get out clean, that once she had the will, she'd vanish and he'd never know what hit him. She even joked about getting him to change his life insurance beneficiary. But I didn't think she'd actually go through with it. The most chilling part, Liza confessed Angela had once said, "If I don't make it out, I still win, because I took something from him that can't be replaced." The will was never found. Detectives searched every drawer, every file, even the pond near the back patio. Nothing. It was as if it vanished along with Angela. Beth, now executor of Harold's estate, believes it was destroyed. She probably burned it. Or maybe Harold did the night he found those emails. Either way, we'll never know what was on that paper. But I know what my father wanted, and what he nearly gave up. Without the revised document, the estate defaulted back to the previous will, leaving everything to Beth and Liam. But the money felt cursed. Beth donated half to victims of elder exploitation. "This isn't a victory," she told the press. "It's a reminder." The man Angela called Sam was real. Real name Santiago Rivera, 38, from Tucson, Arizona. A known scammer with prior arrests for wire fraud and identity theft. But by the time the FBI got a warrant, he was gone. No trace, no passport use, no border crossing. Interpol believes he used forged documents to flee the country. The last digital footprint, a Venmo transfer to Angela labeled "Flight Out," dated 1 day before her disappearance. Was it a setup? Was Angela planning to run only for Harold to discover the truth too soon? Or did Sam have a bigger hand in her fate than anyone realized? The case remains open. Harold died in prison 2 years later from pneumonia. His final words were to a nurse, "Tell my kids I tried. I just wanted someone to see me again." Beth and Liam scattered his ashes at the edge of the Carmel Cliffs, his favorite view. There was no ceremony, no speeches, just a quiet wind and a long silence. Angela's remains were cremated and mailed to Liza. She didn't claim them. The urn still sits unclaimed in a storage room in Salinas County. The house was sold. The oak tree under which they married was struck by lightning a year after the murder. Neighbors called it coincidence. Others called it justice. If this story made you feel something anger, sadness, disbelief, then share it. Because love can blind, and not every smile hides a heart. Some hide knives. Leave a comment below. Do you think Harold was a victim, or just a man who let loneliness cloud his judgment? Was Angela ever truly in love, or just playing a dangerous game? And what about Sam? Is he still out there planning his next con? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more true stories that dig deeper than headlines. And remember, sometimes the most dangerous crimes don't start with violence. They start with a kiss.